You ready?
Yeah. Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Day After podcast.
Hey guys.
Yeah, Ryan. Ryan's doing great right now, as you can tell.
Oh yeah. I went from you'll see in a moment. I upgraded my emotional support game. You'll see in a bit. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's something I kind of saw coming.
Yeah. I called last week. I said she's either going home this week or next week. I thought she would play her idol this week and go home next week, but that didn't end up happening. So this week it is.
I don't necessarily blame her for not. It really seemed like no one was telling her it was her, and so therefore.
Yeah, and it seemed like she thought it was locked still with Ricard, at least, that if there was something that, because she went ahead and told Ricard that was going to be him. So I'm assuming she probably thought, if it is me, then he'll do the same for me.
Yeah.
Because
it wasn't that time yet.
Yeah, exactly. But I think this was a right time for Ricard, honestly. I think this I think he could go home next week too. I think by doing this could potentially get him in a good spot moving forward, but also it could have ended his game in a sense. Like he could be an easy vote next time because there's already a threat on him.
I mean, the thing is, he was already a threat. This just made him more of a threat. The thing is, you have, or at least when it comes to the major threats in the game, he was already a threat. Now I would say he's on the same tier as Xander as a threat. But they're kind of like two sides of the same coin. One is more heroic. The other one literally just backstabbed his number one.
Yeah.
The same episode where she showed him some mercy. So it's like,
in a weird way, this almost felt like this was the finale of the season. Like it felt like those whole 10 episodes have been this big buildup of Shannon Ricard, and it felt like the entire season was leading to this moment. So I'm wondering, where we go from here moving forward, because this seemed like this was what we were building to for 10 episodes.
You have a point. I feel like, obviously we still have, I feel like that was a major arc without throughout the entire season. It was a major arc. I'd say the biggest one. However, we still got Xander's story. Yeah. We have Erica's
interesting. Yeah, I think we have 7 people left. I think 4 to 5 of them could potentially win this game.
Yeah,
which is crazy. Like I've never seen a season of Survivor, at least in a very, very, very long time, where I think multiple people can have a realistic shot of winning if they get to the end.
Yeah, the win condition for everyone, except for, I would say the only, I can't even say that, I say 6 people. The only one I can't really see winning is Heather at this point. Yeah. I do think Liana, if she goes on a revenge, a vendetta thing, and then sweeps, then she can.
Yeah, I think she'd have to play out of her mind. She would have to play how Shan played in the first half of the game. Which can happen, but so far what we've seen from her, I don't think that's going to happen. She's another person who I could also see going out pretty soon because of her
number
positioning.
1 was taken out.
Yeah, her number 1. And I don't know if she's gonna honestly have the mental to really go and work now with Danny and Deshawn. She's gonna want to take them out now, but I think they have so much sway over this tribe that I still don't think that they're going to be in danger here. I think her best move now is to then take out a Ricard and trying to maybe scrape some of the bottom ones down, because I don't think she can make a move against Danny or Deshawn.
The thing is, there are so many different threats. It's all about where the focus is shift. Another thing I have to mention again, this episode, Danny's name was not mentioned at all.
Yeah, it was brought up as like, oh, either Danny or Deshaun, like they were like, ooh, we should get one of them, and then it almost immediately switches back over to Deshaun, like it's like just a very minor, like very blinker you miss it, kind of a moment where, but he did at least kind of get mentioned, but it was just like, immediately Deshaun is considered the one
Yeah.
they're gonna take out, so.
I mean, I'm pretty sure his name on the beach has been thrown out a
Yeah.
bunch
Yeah.
prior to that.
Yeah.
It's just like when it comes to like the true targets, he's never
Mhm.
really mentioned.
Yeah, well, going back to what I've said before, like Dominic and Wendell, like Deshaun's kind of the Dominic and Danny is the Wendell of this group. Like,
Which is kind of funny because on the flip side, they have zero advantages.
exactly.
Though I do kind of compare to how like the targets shift and stuff. It does feel like everyone's face is on a see and say,
Mhm.
and you just pull the little lever or string, and then this wind spills, and then whoever it lands on is the target. That's
Yeah.
just it's a big old see and say of like targets. It feels like because like
Mhm.
we went from maybe Xander to
Mhm.
Erica to Shan to
Yeah.
Sean.
It's like Xander doesn't get votes now because they're just assuming he has no idol. He's got to play it, right? Because that's what the typical play is. If your idol is known, is you just play it, so that way at least it's gone, and maybe moving forward you might lose some of your threat level. But
I don't know. I feel like with two tribal councils in a row, if you count like or two episodes in a row where someone with an idol went home,
yeah,
I think that kind of sends a warning shot to Xander, you know?
yeah,
Whereas like
but he's got ice in his veins. Like he is holding on to that thing. Like he now has a guaranteed shot into final six if he plays it next week. Like that's crazy.
Even if he like, well, I mean, he could potentially win immunity.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
And
because
I
like
don't. He's not playing that for anyone. That is his
no,
idol.
I can see it. I can see him, potentially getting super far. It's going to be a challenge for him to get to the end, but
Yeah.
the thing is, it really depends on how people want to play to get to the end because
Yeah.
you have so many people with win conditions, and
Mhm.
even the less, I would say, obvious ones. Like I do think the bottom, I'd say out of the possible six, I'm sorry, Heather. I
Heather,
don't want to
yeah.
count her out, but at the same time, it's like she's least likely.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because in our fantasy draft, you only have two people left, and Heather happens to be one of them.
It's already shot, like
Yeah, yeah.
it's already shot.
Yeah,
I knew when Nasir went, all hope was gone for me.
yeah, I have the our current scores actually. So right now you have 42 points. You get points when someone gets eliminated. So you have 42 points with two people left in the game.
Joe, I knew I lost last week when he was voted when
Yeah, but
Nasir
I wanted you to have the win condition that if Chantel,
there
Erica,
was
and Heather made it to the end,
there was
that got
no
ruined
way,
this
even
week.
if they did, I knew I was fucked.
Well, I just want to point this out. So you had 42 points with two people left, whereas I had 24 points, so the inverse of it. But I have five people left to get points.
It's you win.
Yeah,
GG's.
yeah, yeah.
GG.
This
Could Erica possibly win? I think
yeah,
there is a possibility because out of
yeah.
like her name gets mentioned a lot. However, she is not the biggest threat.
Mhm.
Like when you still have Ricard, Xander, and then, like even though it's Deshaun and Danny calling the shots, eventually people are going to wake up and be like, look, there's two. And especially after Liana getting, blindsided and her closest ally,
Mhm.
especially after that heart to heart, they had,
Yeah,
it's something where, like it's going to be, well, I mean, to kind of mirror back about what she was saying about when they were like, oh, if we vote Ricard out, then where's Shan going to go? She's not going to leave us.
Mhm.
So she's going to stay with us, right?
Yeah,
So, like Liana could potentially be in the same boat. However, No, in Survivor, I feel like, yeah, I know I'm hopscotching around the episode with what different people said. Erica was like, "Hey, my vote is worth just as much as someone else." I mean, if they have an extra vote, that's a different story, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, luckily there's no extra votes anymore. I believe so, right? They're all gone, or does Xander still have one?
I think Xander still has one
Does he?
because like he doesn't really need to. I'm pretty sure he has. Yeah, he still has all his advantage.
Interesting. So yeah, he still has one. Yeah. You know, haven't heard of that advantage now in a while, I feel.
I mean, why would you?
Yeah.
You don't really need it.
Yeah,
At
I
the
mean,
moment.
I guess that goes to what I've always been preaching this season is that there's just so much to track that everything, like, to know where everything was at all times, and if something's got played, you know, usually if you have an advantage, they let you know for like periodically about it, but this one is
Yeah.
definitely fallen to the wayside.
Well, I mean, I feel like there's, especially this episode, I mean, it is helpful with the little intro cards, or like not the intro cards, but when they're showing like the characters, their names and like
Yeah.
occupation, whatever, usually whatever advantage they have replaces
Yeah,
their
but Xander
occupation.
has kind of a weird instance of that because they're only showing a hidden immunity idol because that's the one that people are talking about. So because he has both of them, they only have room for one.
Just make the text smaller, just on top. They can make it work.
I know, right? But they're just saying idol is the only one people are talking about, so let's just show idol. So yeah. I don't know. This was definitely a crazy episode. I just gotta say, regardless of the fact that I think one of the biggest characters of the season goes home here, I did really enjoy this episode. This, I think, was edited very well. One of my favorite moments comes where Shan was singing, humming her theme song in front of everyone.
I'm like, no. I hope you didn't tell anyone about that on the island, and that was just something you shared with us. But like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and then Heather was like, "What are you singing?" And she's like, "Oh, no, don't worry about it."
I mean, also, I think another thing we have to point out was the whole thing of like, this was like the first challenge or reward that Deshaun and Danny didn't go on.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, it finally happened. The streak was broken.
Yep. They're finally not being able to eat every meal that Survivor's providing for them.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes on. I still am holding true to the theory that Danny is throwing these challenges. When I said that too, like I said it first, and then a couple weeks later, like in the next few weeks, more people started having this theory because they started seeing his elimination was usually happening right before or right around when people just start falling out. And it just always seemed like he just, he wants to make sure that he's not being seen as one of these 3 or 4 people who keep getting to the end of these challenges.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. There are a lot of good challenge beasts in here. If we take away the fact that if Danny is throwing, I mean, there is still that possibility. There's also the one of like, maybe the challenges that have been there have not been quite his forte.
Yeah.
But, like even with this one, near the end, we had Xander, we have Ricard, Deshaun holding in there, and Shan also can hold her own. And then Danny is someone who has done well in a lot of the team challenges and stuff. And yeah, it does seem like he is pulling it back. However, when it comes to like balancing or like stuff like that, it can be a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the idea of winning immunity from that one twist has changed maybe his perception about winning immunities.
I think we might be jumping the gun. I mean, we're talking there's so much to talk about, and we barely scratched the surface of the episode. But like on the next time in Survivor, they're like, all right, we're playing for immunity, but there's a twist, and I'm like,
I won't say anything because I heard of a rumor twist that might be in this episode, and it was called the Do or Die twist. Next episode is called Do or Die.
all right,
and I'm not saying it, but
don't elaborate.
I won't spoil it because obvious reasons, but it looks like it's what was posted. Not looking forward to next week, I'll be honest.
Oh fuck. I mean, like whenever there was a twist there, I was like, already kind of
this one I don't think is worse than the hourglass twist, but it is very close. So
all right, all right, I'm mentally prepared for next week.
Mm-hmm.
So this week,
that's the best way to just know, Tom fuckery's happening, and we'll just hope that hope it's Heather that gets screwed over, I guess. I don't know.
all right, don't say more.
Yeah.
All right, so I mean, with this episode, you do see kind of like the back and forth between Deshaun, whether to stay with Shan or to keep with the all Black Alliance. It's something where it even has the dilemma of like what's good for like the culture as opposed to himself, and is it selfish and all that, like like there is that I wouldn't, in a way, a personal dilemma, but it is the thing of like, how much is $1 million worth to you? Because it I don't know, there was something very interesting about that whole like scene with him and talking about it. And I mean, look, for me, I always feel like alliances, no matter how they're formed, no matter what they're based on, especially at the beginning of the merge or right at the beginning of the game, they need to be tested. They need to see if they actually do vibe, So like, and I feel like, going through that and stuff, it's like, that would be cool. However, it's just like the alliance chemistry is not there for it. I mean, it's not the same with Yule and what he accomplished way back when. It's just like
Shan's problem this whole season pretty much is that she's been wanting to control the entire game, even though all of the tribes had people who were wanting to do the exact same thing, and because she was insistent that her voice was heard the loudest in a lot of these conversations, these other loud voices like your Danny's, Deshaun's are not going to want to work with you, especially if you're coming in there as the minority tribe. Like she definitely overplayed her hands in some aspects,
which was kind of sad because you just see the downfall of it. I mean, like, I do feel like since she is eliminated, I mean, as the season has gone through, we kind of have talked about people that can come back. I mean, it's always different the second time you play. I feel like she has the makings of a great contestant, obviously, without a doubt. The only flaw, her biggest flaw was, not keeping her composure. But I think if she comes back knowing that, that was her flaw, she comes back, she can make a deep run in the game if the conditions were right and everything.
I'm definitely wonder. It depends, obviously, who they bring back, but I could also see people thinking that she's a big threat and taking her out early based off of this game. Maybe.
Yes.
I think she's just gonna have one of the biggest threats if she comes back. Obviously you can avoid that and kind of like still make it far, but
I mean, it's always a thing of like, who else is on that tribe? usually in an all-star season, or at least to some degree, everyone's a threat in their own way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But it's just who does the tribe think is the biggest threat?
Exactly. She gets put on a tribe with Heather and Erica. I think
then we'll see.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
And it's kind of I know back to like that end of the episode, but like when that happened, when that moment happened where it was a tied vote, it slowed down. Like the music slowed down.
It was like we knew the outcome already. Like it seemed very like it clearly Shan knew. Liana was still like worried because her name was there. I think sometimes she's a little slow. Sometimes when like something happens that she's not expecting, like sometimes it might take a bit for her.
Perhaps it's like a denial thing, or perhaps it's like you never know. Like Shan out of the two is the bigger threat, but you never truly know if like if something doesn't go as planned, especially in a game like this, and you see your name written down, and it's something where there is a possibility to go home, even if the person next to you is a bigger threat.
I just feel like Liana's story this season has been she's always a few steps behind the people leading the game, basically. Like the knowledge of power, when she didn't get the idol, she then was like, oh, then I guess they left the idol back at camp, let's still vote for Xander, and had to have everyone tell her like, no, one of them has the idol. And then when they tried to tell her about who the biggest threat is, she had like a few other names before they got to the one that was
that was another fun little moment.
It's
like Erica, Shan,
Erica. And it was like Ricard. Like it was like I don't like it seemed like she just was like I don't know who else.
I mean, it's you do have a valid point, and maybe this is something that really wakes her up. It's something where it's about the win condition, and I feel like could this wake her up and start like a revenge kick? It most likely can, or it does, but we'll see how far she gets with it, because this is we're in the end game. There's a lot of big threats, and these big threats know how to play, whether it's winning immunity. I think Ricard is just, like he's fantastic at this game. Ruthless in the sense of like, and I think the whole thing about, we never promised it was going to be a final two. We know that one day it's going to be one or the other. And I feel like not just like in the game that's kind of like a good thing, but like, also in real life, because like, some people do have like hard feelings and stuff, but it's kind of like the whole thing about, pointing out the elephant in the room, and then it's not as big, it's like, eventually we're going to have to go at each other because we're both too big. And then being like, oh yeah, we know.
I think that whole thing is actually one of Shan's downfalls as well. I think even if you're not super sincere about it, like when you're that close to someone out there, you should be saying let's get to the end together. Like even if you don't give a number to it, you should be saying like let's get to the end, because that could mean like 4 or 5, like that can be somewhere around there still as getting to the end.
It is very true. I think it's like I think it just depends on the two parties involved, and like how one takes commitment more than the other person.
Exactly.
But it is a thing of like, because you see it all the time when we get to like a final 4 or a final 5, that duos, like if it's like a power duo, more often than not, they betray one or the other. Even the most iconic ones, they're like always like pitted against each other, or the other one blindsides, et cetera, and like because that happens almost every time.
Well, when you're part of a duo, like a known duo, it's hard to distinguish moves from each other. Like it's hard because you're not, the jury's not there on all those conversations and what happens between the two of them. So,
and then it's usually whoever has the loudest voice or the bigger presence.
Yeah.
You know, like the whole thing
Yeah.
with like Becky and Yule. Yule got a lot more screen time. He also had an idol and stuff, so it was more like he was calling the shots as opposed to Becky, even though they were, you know, partnership from day one.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it just makes sense around, I think, like the final 6 to turn on your closest ally if you think that they might have been playing either as good of a game or if not better of a game than yours. I think that's that's the sweet spot. Like if you can get them out there, then you only have a few more days of trying to get to the end. So it's not as far of a journey than if you take them out around like a 8 or a 9, you know.
Yeah, I'd say the hardest part is, and this is what makes this game so brilliant and interesting to watch, because like getting rid of your ally is like, you know, good if they have a similar resume. But I think part of the reason why you try and go further in is because that's still a vote on your side.
Exactly.
So like, and you know, it's like, you know, distinguishing goods, you know, the less there are of something, the more value they have. And the less contestants there are, you know, the more a vote is worth. So like 2 votes at 11 is like, who cares? 2 votes in let's say a final 6 or a final 5 could be the difference between one. It could tip the scales in any favor.
Yeah, exactly. If Xander gets the final 5 without extra votes, that's
like we said, you know, extra votes, they're best effective during like smaller number.
Exactly.
It's just vote economics, vote economics.
But yeah, exactly. Like extra votes can either be one of the most useless advantages that you can get in the game, or it can be very powerful. And it's
all about
like you have to. I think you have to get very far in the game or be in that small number scenario for it to be useful. But if you can, then yeah, you have a lot more power.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see.
Cool. I want to also highlight that this was a great episode for Danny. Danny McRae, you know, we got to hear a lot from him this episode. Like he was definitely a standout, just in terms of like the way he throws out names is in like the top tier Survivor players on how they're able to throw out names. He is very subtle about it, and then he almost is able to get the conversation where they start thinking that that's a good idea. Like he doesn't tell them why it's a good idea. He lets them figure it out.
He's brilliant. And I think that's part of the genius of why he's never targeted, especially since his ally is Deshaun. Because Deshaun, I wouldn't like, obviously he's had like more run-ins with like Shan and everything and stuff. And that's pretty much all Deshaun has had run-ins with for the most part. And so, you know, like whenever you have someone that's kind of like drawing attention away from you, you can play more subtly. And I feel like Danny has this, similar to Xander, he has like a hero edit. It's just like, even when, you know, the blind side and stuff, it's like, you know, it was like something of like he's sticking with his number one, which is Deshaun. He's like, that's on you, when, you know, thinking of taking out Shan and stuff, where he was on board, but he was like, that's on you, that's your decision to make. Like, you know, it's like he's not really getting too much blood on his hands, and he's kind of like opposite of Shan. He's very good at keeping his composure. Composure. Other than, you know, obviously the fact where he was a little TO'd when the hourglass twist.
But I think he was rightfully PO. Like if I was out there, I would have said like the same thing. So
I'd be like, Jeff, just know
this is not okay.
No.
This is
No,
Sydney Sydney better come back after they did that to her. Like
he needs to be on the ballot for second chance. And but like Yeah, I'm just like, you know how obviously they do the time lapse and stuff during challenges.
Mhm.
It would just be me going no, and Jeff being like, "Look, Ryan, no, Ryan, no." 10 minutes later, Jeff, just no, Ryan, we're losing daylight, but no.
Yeah, the sun comes up and we're still at
It's the
tribal.
longest introduction to a challenge ever, and it's all because Ryan stalls.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You have to push production back like a day, and eventually they just cancel it.
I get eliminated
Yeah, they just say,
on
you
the
know,
spot
if
because
if
they're
you
like,
want to give up your shot in the game, that's
they'll be like, right, shut the fuck. You're going longer than Ian and Tom on the buoys,
yeah,
okay?
yeah, we can be here all day. Which, by the way, apparently Jeff Probst really hates those challenges that go
The
really
endurance
long.
ones.
Yeah, he hates those endurance ones that go more than 2 hours.
I guess maybe because I mean, like for us, it's exciting because
Yeah,
it's like time elapsed. For
yeah,
them, it's just like
yeah,
there's no music, there's
yeah,
nothing.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
it's like not as exciting. It's just like every, I mean, obviously the people that start to fall, they start to fall, but it's like every 30 minutes or so, someone else drops. And it's like,
yeah,
you're just sitting there in the hot
yeah.
sun.
Yeah, especially because when the long list happens, usually just two people up there, so it's just kind of everyone just watching two people for, who knows how long. Like, I apparently the Christian Hubicki moment in Dave versus Goliath. Yeah, Jeff has gone on record saying that he hated that. He loved it as a TV moment, but
It's a
hated
good
hated
TV
the
moment.
the moment. Like hated that experience.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
But then again, because you don't have to deal with all of it.
Yeah, exactly. You get to see it in a funny montage.
For us, 3 to 5 minutes. For them, 3 to 5 hours.
It was 5.5 hours. So
Jesus Christ.
yeah, and it's
Um,
normally you kind of get to wait there and not have to do too much, but Christian was actively in a conversation with you about who knows what for that long.
yeah, it's I don't know. I kind of like that. Maybe it's because I'm someone who prides himself on his endurance.
Mhm.
Like obviously running endurance doesn't necessarily equate to other things.
Uh,
However, sometimes, but like, like because they are endurance things and I think of like my strong will and my physical prowess, I'm like, oh, I like the endurance challenges because it's like testing your limits even though you're hurting and stuff.
mm.
But to each their own. There is another thing that speaking of things that people don't particularly like, I'm thinking we might not get a loved one thing, not just
Yeah,
because,
that
but
yeah
I mean,
that
like,
that I think that was even said pre-game that was gonna happen. I think that because of COVID.
yeah, I thought that was probably going
Um,
to be the case anyway.
yeah.
But like, when it was at 8, and then like some of the flags, there was
Mhm.
like this little opening in between the two of the flags, and I'm like, oh wait, is this a loved one thing? So I'm like, no, pandemic. I was like
Yeah.
thinking that it was because just of how two flags were positioned close to
Yeah.
like the woods.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yeah.
then they've also done rope challenges for loved ones before.
Yeah.
And so like
Exactly.
my brain was like thinking, wait, because they either do it at 8 or like nowadays they do it like at 8. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
that could be.
There's been a few things from COVID reasons they've changed. I also know that they sleeping arrangements are actually different this season. There's no cuddling or any of that stuff. Like there's no tight kind of like you can't sleep with you like near each other pretty much. Everyone has their own separate like areas that they have to have in order to sleep. That's either COVID reasons or Dan Svilo reasons.
I think a bit of both,
Yeah.
but I feel like that's something where that is some interesting BTS, but I think, in the long run makes things better.
Yeah. And the only reason people even noticed that really was actually the Brad episode where he goes home, that everyone was sleeping in different areas on the beach and not honestly, that's another reason also why we haven't seen Showmance this season, I think. That is usually the Survivor's little moment to be like, ooh, is there something happening or not?
Well, I mean, with this one, yeah, I feel like this one, there were a lot of married people. There's also like all the youngins were kind of spread out,
Yeah. A lot of people thought Xander and Liana actually pregame were going to be the couple that strike it off, but that never happened.
I think that's hard for me to see since I've watched it. But
now looking at it, it's impossible since she hates his stupid face.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of like, I mean, it's always like fun to think that. But I feel like Survivor isn't known for their showmances as much as it was back in the day. Like now it's like something where it may be around pre-merge, but by pre-merge it's gone. And then it kind of moves on. Like showmances are just tough. I mean, like except if it's blood versus water, because naturally that's already there.
Yeah, if you're going on there already with your significant other or family member, you're immediately tied. Yeah,
because it's already everyone.
Why hide it?
I was thinking like the last couple that made it far, and I was thinking of John and Jacqueline.
Yeah.
That was like the only. Well, that was kind of like the last like showman / couple to really, really make a deep run in the game. To my recollection.
Yeah. I think they're the furthest. That was like they were actually together. There's a few other ones that Survivor clearly were trying to prod them together that never amounted to much. Like Dan Rangering and Kara Kay and David versus Goliath.
Yeah, I mean, like when I rewatch it, yeah, that's there. I just don't. It's just not like a very prominent one in my opinion.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that they were a couple kind of, but it really seemed like Survivor production will try to make that a thing, and then the two of them were like, it's not a thing.
And then he was like the first boot for the merge anyway. So
he was the third one gone.
Third one?
Yeah, because there was Elizabeth was the first one, the cowgirl. Then his buddy John Morrison, who I forgot what his last name was for John Hennigan, and then it was him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Around that ballpark, but it's just I don't know. I feel like and we're seeing this more in cinema in general, where not everything has to have like a love story in it or a showmance. Like you're seeing it with like different forms of cinema.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it. I think that most of the times it's cheesy. Like occasionally it can be good. Like occasionally you can have the Boston Rob or Amber kind of stuff. But
I mean, it can be It can be entertaining. Like Big Tales, that was something where it was just like, I think because of how hard it was played into, as opposed to like the actual like alliance and strategy behind it. But
anyways,
getting 42.
Yeah. I wonder if anything like that will happen in a 42. I'm already interested to see what they do for that one. But getting back to 41, what did you think of Ricard? He wins a reward. Do you think that he made the right choices in taking Shan, Heather, and Xander, or would you have that you do agree?
Yes. Well, I mean, like, one, it just makes sense to take your number one, especially with how especially since she never won any rewards. It only makes sense to bring her. Xander, I would say a little iffy because like he's another immunity threat.
Yeah.
But seeing he's out the bottom, it's about rallying numbers and stuff. And Heather feeling like she's on the bottom, of course, that's a great opportunity. Like, I'm here to feed you. You are appreciated. Let's get rid of Deshaun. It's like, it's good, strategy, in my opinion. Getting in Erica might have been a bit more of a sell, but I would buy it if it wasn't. But I feel like Ricard's like reasoning for everyone, even if it was like outside of game, like people that haven't been on reward, like even if you take that aside and it's focused on the game, it's very, very wise choices.
Yeah, I think he chose a little bit of everything that he needed for this vote, actually, to actually get him in the position where he could know how this vote was going and being able to decide that, oh, this could be my opportunity now to take out Shan, because he saw the pieces in place from how he was able to establish himself with this. So I definitely agree. We do though see Danny thinking that wasn't a good move, because that's definitely jury favor carrying that is happening.
I mean, like anytime someone has to choose someone for a challenge or for a reward, it's like it's always going to be like a jury thing, because like I wouldn't say like, oh, I brought you to get Chinese food for this one reward. Give me $1 million. Like, like it's not necessarily that, but like, it does play in the thing of like, okay, it's something where on a subliminal level, it's like, all right, they did help me out. And so like, it might favor them a tad or be in the back of their mind, but I don't think it's going to be, prominent. In their decision making.
It's I always look at these reward ones as short-term hatred that comes from it. Like, it can ruin your game by doing it in the next 1 or 2 votes, but like you're not going to not vote for someone at the end because of something like this. It's really just like so especially in a shorter game, like everything happening a lot faster, especially I think it could still carry over into next episode, but if Ricard can get through next episode, I think that moment will kind of disappear, and then we'll see if though maybe other moments Ricard does will be the reason why people are trying to target him. But yeah, and I also want to say another, I feel like Danny threw that reward. I feel like he knows not to win these kind of challenges, because when he got to the puzzle, he kind of just doesn't do the puzzle and was just watching other people do the puzzle. I did
notice he did stop.
Yeah, like it clearly looked like he was then just watching, like it was like you got to just watch the show kind of. So, and it just seemed like he wasn't focused on his puzzle like once he was doing it. So either he just doesn't know how to do puzzles, which is another possibility. He is an athlete. We don't know how good his puzzle skills are. But yet again, I feel like there's some signs pointing to that.
All right, there are some signs, yes. Then this begs the question, because I was also thinking this like in the back of my head of like, because it's a very strong theory, and it has like, it's a credible theory. A credible theory, not an incredible theory. I didn't enunciate
it can be a thing. It also can be a load of BS.
But I do think there's validity to it. So like, I'm thinking in my head, when do you stop the act? Because we're in final 7, and there are a lot of big targets. And granted, I think Danny is still a big target. Along with Deshaun, but they're kind of like targets together, as opposed to where Xander and Ricard are targets solo.
Yeah, exactly. I think Danny is in a great position right now, because I think he should turn it on at like 6. Because that's it's usually 7 or 6 is when you get more of the big obstacle course challenge immunity stuff that happens. So we're either getting it this next episode or the episode after that. I think the episode after that, because from what the like little bit of setup we saw, it kind of looked like we might get another endurance thing.
Yeah. I didn't quite. Yeah. I was like, oh, we could have looked back at that.
Yeah, I mean, I it's very, very like it could still be an obstacle course, but from just kind of like how they were
position.
walking. Yeah.
We'll see. So yeah, it's like, wait, did you answer my question? When does he turn it on then?
Oh, I was saying he shouldn't do it this next episode, but the episode after that.
Maybe. I think it really depends when he wants to especially after a blindside.
I gotta say my decision is also by knowing what this next twist is. So I'm just so
all of the theories are out the window.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, I think because of this twist, I think you just gotta play it calm. I think Deshaun goes out and I think between the two of them, Deshaun's probably going to be the one that would get targeted first. Danny would only go before Deshaun if an idle situation happened that caused Danny to go home instead. Like, I think that's the only way that he goes home next week.
I mean, or if Deshaun wins immunity and then Leon is like, all right, let's take out number one.
Yeah. That's also potential. But even then, it just seems like everyone likes him. Like
it is, and then and you see it around the 7 or 6 mark. Yeah. Likable people start to become a huge target because that's when you have to think about the jury. You think about the jury a lot more because it's like it's coming.
Yeah.
And it's like that's why Danny is such a big threat, and we knew this from like the very, very beginning. It's like we're down to the nitty gritty, and I think. Isn't next episode the last one before?
I believe there's 2 more before the finale.
Okay, so that means final 5. Maybe we do get a final 2.
Yeah.
Who knows? So we'll see. But it's like it's getting to that point where if Nasir was still around, his name would be thrown around because it's the likability thing. Because especially at this point, it's not only about who's a threat, it's like who am I getting to the end with. And you even see it in this one where it was like, all right, who's my final 3 going to be, or final 2, as Shannon, like Ricard were saying. Even though like final 2 is something that hardly ever comes up, I do think if there is 2 more episodes, it is a huge possibility, but we just have to wait and see.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a possibility, especially if we have another double boot. If there's a surprise double boot that happens.
Don't say anymore.
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that it's very possible that we have yet another double boot that happens. Just by the nature of this season, like it seems like there's still only a few amount of days left in the game. It's very possible that either one of these episodes could just be a 2-parter and have 2 people go, or whatever.
Yeah, it is a thing where so like this was, or the tribal council was on night 19, so the day after is going to be the day after our podcast. So the day after it's going to be day 20, and that means there are like 7 calendar days, which means 6 potential days for challenges. And obviously
I believe the survivors also know the schedule going into it, like when immunity is like they know a little bit ahead when an immunity stuff is like planned. And Ricard did say in a confessional that Deshaun can go home tomorrow, which might indicate that day 20 will be the next immunity challenge.
Potentially. It could be a thing of like, sometimes they like to shuffle around their confessionals.
Yeah.
And then it's like, or metaphorically tomorrow,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, take that for what you will. I do think that we're probably going to get another immunity challenge on day 20. Um, I feel like they want to try to space out some of the end game with a few people, just so if anything happens, they can kind of deal with it.
We'll see.
Mhm.
We'll see. All right. Is there anything else we have not covered?
Um,
No, I think
yeah, I think
we
we've
pretty much,
covered everyone's games pretty much.
yeah, everyone's game, and like, yeah, I
Yeah,
kind of like softly meant there are some things that I wrote down that we softly mentioned.
yeah.
So I'm just like making
Yeah,
sure.
I love the musical orchestration at Tribal. It really felt like they gave Shan a great send off. I think
Yeah,
it was
it
unique
kind of
music for it. So
reminded me of and it could be because Hawkeye came out today. The first two episodes, it kind of reminded me of like the whole Black Widow death, where I'm like, oh no, oh no, it's gonna happen. And
yeah, yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow.
well, I mean, like for me, I know like she's not liked by everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people have also hated her after, like her what she does after the game. How she's been tweeting and reacting and commenting on certain things with the
To
season.
what? Okay,
Yeah.
this is new.
This is new.
Granted, I'm
Oh,
not on Twitter, and I
yeah, so a lot of people were upset with the direction of the season, of how it's very twist heavy, and all that stuff. And she would say stuff like, "Okay, well, bye bye. You can leave. We don't want you here." And it was very kind of like, like there's a chunk of people that she was just kind of like dissing on with that.
okay.
Yeah, there's more stuff. Some of it like I kind of get with her, but but also I think she's just handling it maybe the wrong way for some people.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, the thing is, when it comes to social media or
Mhm,
media in general, whether it is social media or you're talking to the press, what have you,
mhm.
we're all human, and especially since she doesn't have a publicist or a PR person
Yeah,
in her corner. Yeah, she knows how to talk because a comedian and does sermons and stuff, but it is a
yeah,
thing of like some people just we're human and we don't always know the best way to handle certain situations or certain things on social media,
yeah.
and might be a case of that.
Uh,
um from my opinion. I
yeah.
mean, I haven't seen any of her tweets,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I know Russell Hantz especially was very critical of her because of all of this. So if you want to learn more about that information, you can look up Russell Hantz's video on it.
uh, he has another one. The last one I saw was about the merge, or
I,
the mergatory thing.
yeah, I think it might have been one before that, maybe.
Uh,
Yeah, or maybe it was after, but yeah, it was around that time still. Was when a lot of the hate was coming around her way.
all right.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what happened also was she started tweeting, especially when people were praising her game. That was when some people started also criticizing the game itself. And so she probably yet again had a bit of an ego about it and
Maybe.
thought that she was the best amped to respond, I guess. I don't know. I
We'll
will
see.
say surprising though, a character of that magnitude to go out at eighth.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, because I do think she's someone that should come back.
But 100%. I think there are like 4 locks on the season that need to come back, and she's one of them.
Definitely, and we can definitely discuss this
Yeah.
in one of our or just like kind of like kind of like looking at the whole season as a review,
Mhm.
kind of like taking the whole thing in. That's one thing we can definitely go over, especially since we got a whole lot of gameplay still left. But yeah,
Exactly.
agreed. However, that being said, I still feel like, all right, greatest player this episode, definitely Ricard.
Yeah,
Worst player,
agreed.
I feel like to no other fault, just mostly because of her composure and everything. Well, and now that I'm saying that, I do kind of remember what you said about Liana not being totally getting
Yeah.
everything and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I might,
These are the two options I think for LVP.
but I feel like, dang, I think in the sense of like, I'm a little conflicted because I don't want
Yeah.
to give it to Shan, even though that was in the forefront of my mind, and I don't want to use Liana as a straight up cop out, so I don't have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
But I feel because since she was on the receiving end of such a brilliant blindside, and the fact that it happened almost in a similar manner to what she did, in a similar manner to what she did to Nasir, I think I have to give her the LVP.
Yeah, it's definitely Shan or Liana. Like I think obviously Shan had ways to get out of this. Like she didn't have to go home this week.
I mean, fact is she had an idol, and fact is,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah, so obviously I think for this episode I think it has to go to Shan. But if you're to look at moving forward in the game, the people who are still here, yeah, Liana is definitely the LVP.
I don't think she is though. If she's like legit can get people to rally against Deshaun and Danny,
Yeah, but
because they have,
that's under the assumption that she can. And
I
I
mean, like
just don't
there are
think she has
4 people
it.
that think that they're on the bottom.
Yeah, but they just had a big move with the people who were up there. I think the idea of them on the bottom might have shifted at least a little bit to where
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the thing of like
yeah,
perception is reality, and like just
yeah.
because you're not something, it's still like if it feels a certain way to a certain person, that
Mhm,
does kind of like if you feel like you're on the outs, then and that's your reality,
mhm.
it is something where you do feel like you can be more flexible with your
Yeah.
gameplay and stuff as opposed
My
to like,
only
oh,
question I then would be, what would you say Liana should who should she target next episodes?
Deshaun.
Okay, so Deshaun's got Deshaun, Danny, Erica, and Heather as very clear, like they are wanting to vote. Like they are still very tight as this Lugu four.
Well, I
Um,
mean, be I would say Xander has an idol and an extra vote,
yeah,
tying
yeah,
things up. And it's like if she can
yeah.
convince
But
Erica,
Xander and
who
Liana hate each other. Liana's still in the boat of she wants to get rid of Xander.
is she might sing a different tune because her
Yeah.
closest ally was taken out.
Yeah.
Like
Well, yeah. I
shit
guess
like
I'm
that.
just I'm saying I don't think they're targeting Xander next episode. So even if he, like, I don't think they're gonna. There's no reason that he's gonna idle someone out next episode. I think the vote's really going to be either Leon or Ricard. And that's I just those are the two options I think it's going to be going down.
Uh-huh.
And I can't really see much of a difference except if this twist just changes everything.
That's just one thing we have to see.
Yeah, so I exactly. So there's it can change. There is a change, but like if you're looking at it from where they currently stand, not knowing what happens next week, I definitely think Liana is in a tough spot, and I think Ricard, despite playing a great episode this week, could have been in a similar spot where Evie got MVP the week before she got eliminated. This could have been his big prop up moment before he goes out. But I still think Liana is more likely to go out than Ricard next week.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for this episode of the Day After podcast.
All right, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. If you live in the U.S. or any other place that celebrates
is there anywhere else that celebrates Thanksgiving?
I think Canada has a Thanksgiving, but it's actually in October.
Interesting. Weird.
I could be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. The Canadian viewers are going to be very upset if that's
I'm
wrong.
so sorry, Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds is the person who you gotta apologize if you upset someone from Canada.
Well, I mean, of course, he's a fellow Ryan. All the Ryans have a meeting like every third Thursday of the month.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the Ryan convention.
Well, I mean, like it's more like I wouldn't say a Zoom meeting, but it's more like Zoom clusters with each it's kind of like each celebrity Ryan kind of has their own faction of different Ryans. I just so happen to be under Reynolds. I got kicked out of Seacrest and Gosling. I'm trying to climb up the ranks in Ryans, and sometimes the other Ryans don't appreciate that. And so like Reynolds took me in. He took me in.
Nice.
All right, guys.
Yeah, now we're actually done with the episode after that whole tangent.
All right. Peace out, everyone.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Adios.